This is a home interview, 218th Street, Queens Village, New York. It is the 21st of March, 2003, approximately 11 a.m. The interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Okay, my full name is George E. Leininger, and my date of birth was September 10th, 1923. So I'm 79.
And where were you born, sir?
I was born in the Bronx, New York.
Okay. What was your pre-war educational background?
Pre-war educational background? Well, really not anything, because I have lived in Pennsylvania for 16 years. I was brought up in Pennsylvania, but I came back to New York City.
Well, what schooling did you have prior to entering military service? High school?
Oh, yes. I had grade school and high school in Beach Lake, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I came to New York in 1942, back to New York City, where I was born. And I have joined the millwright and machinery erectors of 740 New York. So I got credited for all that time that I was in the service, and I was inducted in, I think, January of '43.
Okay. I'm going to go backward a second. Do you recall where you were and what your reaction was to the news about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I was in Pennsylvania at that time. My father owned a garage and a gas station. I was pumping gas on a Sunday. It was December 7th, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
On Sunday. And we had the radio on, and I heard that Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Do you know what your reaction was to that?
Oh, well, I was 19 at the time. And, of course, I didn't realize what everything was, but when I was in school, in high school, my principal used to explain everything of Germany and all that, and it was very educational. And I practically knew what was happening. I mean, we had suspected that we were going to go to war, but we didn't think it was going to go to war that way. And it was a jolt, I'll tell you that.
Did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you know, I had a good geography teacher.
Okay. When were you drafted, or did you enlist?
When I came to New York first, I went down to enlist in the Air Force. And they told me to wait because I'd be on the induction list. They told me that right away. And of course I went I went home, and a month later I was drafted. And of course I got in the Air Force, but I don't know whether they honored that or not, or it was just the time that they were getting ready for cruise and everything like that. And I went to Fort Dix, and then I went to Miami Beach.
Why did you pick the Air Force?
Well, my father and all was always interested in aviation, and I was myself.
So you had flown prior to...
I had flown, but not as a pilot or anything. I had flown with my brother-in-laws. I had seven brother-in-laws, and 5 of them were in the Air Force. So one of them had a plane up there, and later on in life, after I came home, my brother-in-law and myself were partners in an airplane. And I did fly later on.
All right, so where did you go for your basic training?
Miami Beach, on the hotels down there. And I went from there to Denver. I went through the Armory Gunnery School and several schools after that. And then I ended up in Laredo, Texas, the Aerial Gunnery School. And I graduated from there, and then I went up, got in the crew. We went to, I think, Salt Lake City. And I got in with my crew and everything like that.
Now, did you stay together from that point?
Yes, we stayed together from that point, and we flew every mission together.
Okay. Where did you pick up your first plane?
Well, we went to Sioux City, Iowa, and we got plane. That's where we went to most of our training, and also Mitchell, South Dakota, on a satellite base. Now there was 4 squadrons in each group. Jimmy Stewart was in one group. He was in the 703rd. He was squadron leader of the 703rd. My colonel was Colonel Terrell, later on Lieutenant General.
Did you get to see Jimmy Stewart often?
Oh, yeah, every day.
Did you?
Of course, I was in the 700th Squadron,
Mm-hmm.
and Jimmy Stewart flew about 11 or 12 missions with the 445th Bomb Group. And he, every time a squadron leader would have to lead the group when he was leading the mission, I mean, we were always instructed by him of all the missions and everything like that. I saw him and his mother and father walking around the base in Sioux City just before we went overseas.
Did you ever get to talk to him personally?
Oh yes, yes, he was a very personal, nice man. That man didn't have to act at all because that's just natural.
Okay. Did you always train or work with B-24s?
Yes, I flew B-20, 117 at one time, that's all in my life. But we also were on a practice mission from Mitchell, South Dakota. And the bombardier and the pilot, the bombardier had lived in Lexington, Missouri. And we were on a practice mission to Grand Island, Nebraska. And they decided between them that they were going to buzz the bombardier's farm. So we were about 500 miles off course, to tell you the God's honest truth. And we did, and everybody come out and waved, and we was having a heck of a good time. And we started back to Grand Island, Nebraska, and we lost one engine. And he radioed in with the nearest base, but it was Grand Island. So when we got a little ways in, we went maybe 100 miles, so we lost another engine, and we couldn't feather the prop. But we were pretty close to the base, and we landed, we crash landed. And that day, we heard that there was about four or five other 24s that crashed, and most of them exploded. Well, the pilot landed, and my pilot was Mike Lawson, Swede Lawson. He used to be a golfer at one time. And he took us in, and we all walked away from the plane. But it was completely demolished. It didn't go on fire, thank God.
So your wheels didn't go down, or you?
You couldn't put the wheels down because we would have dived right in. And then I also crash landed slightly in our base in Tippershire in England too. But that happened too also. But I never flew. I flew with a couple other pilots, but Mike was my main pilot, and I flew 29 missions with him.
Okay. Where did you pick up your plane? Did you eventually fly over to England, or?
Oh yes, yes. We flew over to England. We went back from Sioux City when we come back from the satellite base in Mitchell, South Dakota. We picked up we flew our other plane to Grand Island again, and we picked up a new plane. And then we went to Florida. From there, I can't think of the name, back the end of tip of Florida. And we went from Florida to Puerto Rico, to British Guiana, to Brazil, Belém, and Natal. And we took off from Natal and would go across the ocean. Let's see. We got across the ocean and we landed in Africa. And when we landed in Africa at the base there, the French fleet was there and the British had sunk it. They were all sunk in the harbor. And we went from Natal, we went up to Marrakech. And we landed right on the desert, right on the end of the desert in Marrakech. It was a hellhole. And we spent Thanksgiving there, of 43.
Why do you think it was a hellhole?
Well, we were intense, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a hellhole because they had Thanksgiving dinner there, and there was Italian prisoners of war serving us. And when we come out, empty out your pans, the colored kids and stuff were jumping in the barrels. I mean, they were starving to death. And then we stayed there about 3 or 4 days. I got a hell of a cold because we were sleeping right on the Sahara Desert, and it was cold as hell at night. Hot as hell in the day, but cold as hell at night.
They didn't have any heaters in there?
Oh,
Any
no.
stoves?
We had our flying clothes, heavy flying clothes like I got on over there. And as I say, it was hell. I got sick. And I guess I had a slight case of pneumonia from sleeping out in the desert. And they put me in a hospital, which wasn't bad, but it was a one-room Quonset shack, you know what I mean. And I knew we were there about a week, and I didn't want to lose the crew. So they wouldn't let me out, they wouldn't discharge me. So I went and called for my pilot, Mike, and he come over, and I told him if they wouldn't let me out, I was going to jump out the window, one way or the other. So he talked them into letting me go, so then I went there and we flew. The next day or so, we flew to England. And we flew around, and we had an escort plane with the barrage balloons around the city. You had to follow an escort plane. And then we landed in Tipperham, which was right outside of Norwich, which our base. It was an old RAF base. And that was in November. And from there, let's see, I think we flew out, the first mission, this 445th flew, we weren't waking up, but we got on the second one. And that was, I think, the 16th of December. That was our second mission of the 445th.
Mm-hmm. But it was your first mission.
That was our first mission. And we flew Christmas Eve. We flew a mission on Christmas Eve.
Where was your first mission? Where did
I
you
get
go?
my...
Sure.
The first mission was December 16th on a Thursday. And the mission was Bremen, Germany, second largest city of Germany. You want me to read this whole thing?
Well, no, just I was just wondering where your mission was and what was the target there.
The target was Bremen.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what the specific targets were there?
No, but I remember as we come in, it was clear. There was no overcast or undercast, and we come in, and I could see. The city, from there, Denmark was not too far from Brennan, right across. And I could see the people there in Denmark and everything. We were about, I would say about 20,000 feet.
Did you get hit with flak at all?
Yes, we hit heavy flak, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, at that time, of course, it was our first mission, and I didn't know what to expect, really. But we hit flak, and I guess we saw a few fighters, but they didn't attack our group. But we had fighter cover. We had P-38s and P-47s because we didn't get the 51s until after I was almost finished with our missions. And that was it. I mean, it was about 42 below zero.
Now, did you ever suffer from any frostbite at all?
My cheeks, yes, my cheeks got it in my hands, of course. But on one mission, the bombardier almost froze to death because his heated suit went. We had heated suits,
Yes.
and then the heavy sheepskins over them.
Did you wear gloves?
Oh yes, you had to wear gloves.
Now, did you wear the really thick gloves, or did you wear a thinner glove? You were
Well, I wore silk gloves,
silk, okay.
and then I had the heavy gloves over it. But when I was shooting my guns and stuff, I used to have to take the heavy gloves off, you know, to get the trigger.
Now, where were you? What gunner were you?
I was a tail gunner,
Tail gunner.
and I flew all my missions as a tail gunner. I had my choice of what position I wanted to fly when we got on the crew. And I was an armor gunner. In fact, I went through armory school and everything like that. And I did know my machine guns pretty well. I think there was about 500 parts in the machine gun. And then I also had to inspect the bombs and stuff with the bombardier to make sure the fuses were all right and everything was in the shackles and the racks. And of course the ball gunner he went to another school. I don't know where he went through, but he was also an armor gunner.
Did you ever get into the ball turret?
Oh yes, but I never flew in it. Of course I went. And what else can I study?
Did you wear a parachute?
No, you had the harness on, but I had the parachute right by my door in the back turret. And I used to take the door off of our plane because our plane was named Shoo Shoo Baby, and we had our own plane.
Did you, who named the plane?
Well, here it is here. We all had a say on who named the plane. And all of us put in for the names, but we finally named it Shoo Shoo Baby. That's S-H-O-E, because the engineer was married and had a child. And they took one shoe and they used to hang it over the pilot's head, up on the... And
Did you decorate the nose at all?
No, we didn't have many decorations because Jimmy Doolittle at that time, well, that was the one that we finished with. We had other commanders before that, but he took over later on, Lieutenant General Doolittle. And he didn't like obscene pictures and stuff on the nose of any plane. So we didn't have our plane known, but I had under my turret, I had named Bunny with my wife's nickname. And that plane went down February 20th. We were on furlough on R&R up in England, up in Scotland. And that plane was shot down. And some of them got out, but the tail gunner was killed. And then we got another plane after that. I don't know what the name of it was because it wasn't our plane. It wasn't. Each pilot from the original group was donated, not donated, but given a plane of his own, because we had our own. Everything was, you know.
So you flew the same plane most of the time? Then?
Yes, I think we flew 13 or 14 missions in Shoo Shoo Baby before it was shot down.
Was it painted green or was it silver?
No, it was gray.
Gray?
Gray. And we had a big F on our tail. That was the group's name.
Did you wear a flak jacket?
No, I couldn't get it on. We had a regular helmet in the back that you put on a steel helmet. We didn't have flak jackets at that time, to tell you the God's honest truth. And I don't know when they got them, but I have flak jackets and stuff out in the museum to show the people, you know. But we never, that was about 40 pounds anyhow, and it was too heavy. Wear over your underneath everything, because first you had your long johns and your regular uniform on, and then you had a light, something like that, A2 jacket, and then your heavy sheepskin stuff over that. Now, I don't
Now,
know.
did you wear your shoes? Did you wear the booty things over them, or?
No, you had regular over your shoes. You had regular sheepskin, and of course the heated suit. And heated suit. A lot of times they would go out. The bombardier almost froze to death on one mission because his suit went out. And finally we got back. We go down to about 10,000 feet, and it wasn't that cold. But you had trouble going to the bathroom. So I used to get some empty cans from the commissary in the morning before we got in the plane. And I used to use them, and I used to bomb away because it was solid ice. I used to I had to door my turret off so I could go around in azimuth and drop. I used to bomb Germany by myself.
Did you ever get, we talked to a tail gunner that had a problem with his tail gun getting covered with urine when the others would go into tubes. It ran back across his
Well, yeah,
his
it used
turret.
to come flying back. Yeah, it used to come flying back. But yeah, it was almost impossible to use a tube because it was froze immediately. I mean, a warm day was 30, 35 below. I've seen it as high as about 50 below already. But I would say the average was about 42 below at about 20,000 feet up.
How long were your missions on the average?
Well, the average mission I'd say was about 6.5 hours. Because we used to have missions in France that wasn't as bad, because we used to hit the rocket installations over there, and we'd go down about 12,000 feet to hit a rocket installation. But that wasn't too bad. But the flak would be heavy. I mean, because 24 or 17 at 10, 12,000 feet is an awful good target. But the Germans were very good at the ack-ack. They used to follow you right around. You know, you could see the things coming right up and back of you, in front of you. And the flak was terrible.
Was your plane ever hit heavily with flak?
Yes, most all the time. And a lot of times after, we couldn't fly our own plane because of getting fixed up. But we got engine hit several times, and we got back at 3 engines a couple times.
Now, you mentioned you had to crash land in England once.
Yes, it was a very slight, let's see, we were coming home, we went on a mission, and it was late in the afternoon, because Doolittle and the authorities and stuff decided that British used to hit the Germans all night long. We used to hit the Germans during the day, and they decided to hit them late in the afternoon, so there'd be 3 visions of hitting them. And we took off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is almost impossible for a mission. And we went in pretty far in Germany, and we come back. It's called The Night of the Intruders. In fact, there's several books out on that. And we come back, it was about 10 o'clock at night. And it was all blacked out, of course. England was blacked out. And as we come in, the Germans followed us in. over the channel. They were shooting at us. I got out of the turret because I couldn't see what I was shooting at anyhow. I just stood there. And as I got out, the British also was opening up with anti-aircraft. They didn't know what they were shooting at. I think we lost 14 planes that time. That's other groups too.
Was that from friendly fire, basically? Or?
No, well, yes and no, most of them crash landed. Because there was no lights, the base was blacked out. And as we come in, Mike flashed his spotlights, and there was a plane right in front of him. It was Lieutenant Burke's plane. We almost hit his stabilizers. We went down, and the wing hit, and it just about scraped the... And anyhow, it just about hit. I was stood in the waist, and I looked down, and I saw that wing go down to the right, and it just about scraped. So we didn't go around. He went around again, and he put his wheels down. And we come in again, but there was still no lights. And we landed off on the side of the runway. We didn't even hit the runway. We landed up there, and it was considered a crash landing, but he got the plane down. But the other crash landing that I did to Grand Island was really bad, because I was sitting with right against the Bombay door there, and I had my feet on the ball turret. I had braced myself like that, and the ball turret went right up to the plane. It didn't catch my feet, luckily. But that was a bad one. And I thought any minute that it was going to explode. I mean, and I was one of the first ones out the waist window. And I went out to try to get the pilot and the co-pilot out. It was all crashed. But by that time, the crash trucks came and stuff, and I was, helped out. We all walked away from it. The colonel said, I guess they got reprimanded for being off base there. But the colonel said anybody can land a plane like that and walk away. Forget about it. So we were never brought up on charges or anything like that.
What do you think was one of your most difficult missions?
Well,
All of them.
pretty near all of them, I would say. At that time, see, they had a big push on from about January till April or March. They had the big push on because they were figuring of getting ready for the invasion. But I was finished before the invasion. I finished April 24th. And of course, we awarded on the 25th mission, we were awarded the DFC. I didn't get it until July 7th of 1944 in Atlantic City on the boardwalk.
How many missions did you fly altogether?
I flew 29 missions with the same crew.
Did you ever go to Berlin?
Yes, we got just outside of Berlin on the first Berlin mission. Just outside. We didn't go quite to Berlin. But we had fairly good cover. When I first got over there was nothing but 38s and 47s. And after, I would say, the last, maybe 10 missions, we did have P-51s. And they made a big difference.
What were your relations like with the English people?
Very good. I mean, they treated us good. I used to have a little boy used to come in. He was about 12 years old. I tried to look him up when I was in England the last time, and I couldn't find him. But he used to make my bed for me, and he used to also, his mother used to wash my clothes.
Did you ever experience a buzz bomb attack?
They were just starting then. They were just starting. I never saw too many of them, but I heard them. And they were just started with the buzz bombs. And I did see a 262 German jet at one time. He came through our home mission going about 600 miles an hour. I couldn't even get my guns on him. But he was just a show of thing because they didn't have many of them at that time. He didn't do any damage. But that's the only one I ever saw.
When you went back to the States, you went back in 44, and I know you discharged in 45. Did you act as an instructor, or what did you do there?
No, when I got back, they didn't know what to do with us, to tell you the truth. Because we were at limbo. We couldn't fly any more missions. They took us off flying status, of course, at that time. And I went to Mississippi, Biloxi, and I was there for, when I come back on the what is it, the Mauritania or the Lusitania?
Mauritania.
Mauritania. I come back on the Mauritania, and I landed in Boston.
Now, did your whole crew come back together?
No, just three of us come back. My engineer, the radio operator, and myself came back. And we left from Liverpool, England. We come back, I think we come back in 5 or 6 days. We come across, going 22 knots. And we landed in Boston, and then we broke up. I didn't see them again until after I was in civilian life. And I went through quite a few bases. First, I was flak happy. They call it they put us in different places, but I went to North Carolina and the hotels over there and all. They treated us very good. But it was known as flak happy anyhow.
Like a
It's
battle fatigue.
Battle fatigue. It's nervousness. You get all keyed up and everything like that. And I was there for from different hotels for at least a month or two. I was in North Carolina, and then I was shipped to Mississippi, Tennessee, and I finally ended up in Washington, the state of Washington. And from there we went to Oregon. I was put in exactly in the engineers, because the Army was part of the Army. And I got my discharge. We was chasing Jap bombs around, those sand bombs that was coming. We were out mostly in barracks and stuff. It was all what would I say? All staff sergeants, techs, master sergeants. They did. You couldn't put you on KP or anything like that, you know. So we were chasing these bombs around.
Now, for somebody that doesn't know, that may be watching this in the future, what do you mean by the sand bombs, Japanese sand bombs?
Well,
Sand bombs.
most of the people don't know that we were invaded. There was these on parachutes. They were sent on the waves of the air or something would bring them over, and they landed in the west mostly. I think one landed as far as Minnesota, and of course they had explosives on it. But I never saw one. I never saw one. But I understand there was 2 people killed by it. There was a man and a woman, I think, or a child killed by it.
Yeah, I think they were trying to start forest fires with them.
Yes, they did start a lot of forest fires. That I did see.
You saw forest fires?
Yeah. And we were out in barracks way out in Oregon and Idaho. And we used to travel back and forth. And at that time there was a place there not too far from us that had horses. So I used to hire a horse every couple of weeks and ride out on a horse and stuff like that. We had a lot of fun that way. but nobody bothered us. Then we were sent back to, in 45, I think it was October, I was sent back to California, and I got discharged from California.
What did you think when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
Well, it was very sad. At that time when I was in Laurie Field, training in school, the armament school, Roosevelt came to that base in Denver. And we were lined up between Laurie Field and another field. We were all lined up one day, and he came through with his 36 Ford. He sat there with the hat and a big cigar waving at us. And it was quite a thing. We felt, you know, as far as you know, at that age, you don't think that much. Because I was 19. I was 20 when I come back.
What was your reaction when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs on Japan?
Well, we thought it was great at that time. I mean, because we knew the war was over and we were going to get discharged.
Did you use the GI Bill when you returned?
Yes, I did. I used the GI Bill, and I was on the 5220 Club.
My next question.
Yeah, I was on the 5220 Club, but I came back, and I was in the millwrights. I was an apprentice when I went away. And that time counted towards being a mechanic, and all my time in service counted towards my retirement.
How did you use the GI Bill?
Well, I went to a few schools, but not too much.
How much did you use of the 5220 Club?
Well, unemployment was not that good. It wasn't that bad, but I was working in between, and I would say I used it maybe 3/4 of the time.
Okay. Did you stay in contact with anyone from your unit?
Oh yes, I call my pilot every week. He calls me. There's four or five out of the 10 of us was still living, and we converse back and forth. But Mike and I were very good friends.
Is he still living? Or?
Yes, he's about, I think today or tomorrow he's 86.
Where does he live?
He lives in Boston, right outside of Boston.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yes, I'm in the 2nd Air Division. I'm up here in the 533rd. I belong to about 4 or 5 different...
Do you belong to the 8th Air Force?
Association, yeah. Yeah, I belong.
How about the American Legion or VFW or anything like that?
I'm not in the VFW, the American Legion. But also, we have a plaque that I put in the 8th Air Force in Pola, Georgia. It's right outside of Savannah. And I have a plaque. I'll show you that. Can you see that?
Okay, yep. You want to just explain to us what it is?
Well, this is all the bases in England. I think of the 2nd Air Division. We were in Norwich, just outside of Tippershall. It's about 16 miles from Tippershall to about 90 miles from London. And of course, B-47, the 38, and the 47s are there.
Okay.
51s, rather.
Okay, if you can put that down, we have that now. Now, how about this? If you just hold it there and tell us when that was taken.
Well, that was taken when I was in the furlough. My first furlough was in Bronx, New York. I brought home some of my flying clothes, and I had to go back to Sioux City.
And I think that's without the flight.
Well, that's the same.
And how about this one?
Well, this is the same picture, but this is with heavy flying clothes.
Okay.
And this?
And this is in Savannah, Pola, Georgia. It's in the memorial section down there, my crew,
Okay.
which is only 4 left now.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All right.
That's the 8th Air Force Historical Society.
Now what is that?
This was when I was awarded the DFC in Atlantic City. What was it? The 4th of July, 1944.
A week or so after you come home.
2 pilots and myself on the boardwalk of Atlantic City.
Okay, I'm getting a little glare. Can you just move that a little bit? Okay, that's good. All right, I got it.
And this is some of the medals which I received. DFC,
Mm-hmm.
the Air Medal, the French Croix d'Or, and what's the one in New York State there?
Conspicuous Service Cross?
Yes, that was awarded by Governor Como. And of course the Presidential Citation which given to the group we got from the Gotham mission. That was awarded by President Roosevelt.
Okay.
Now we saved what I think one of the best for last.
Yeah, that's my regular bomber's jacket.
We have many more there. Those are around.
Can you see that?
Yes, let me try to zoom in on it, if I can get that whole insignia.
You can get the back of it too.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me get the right side of it. All the missions. That's the A2 flight, what they call the A2 flight
A2
jacket?
jacket, that the original A2 jacket. I didn't donate it to the museum because I wanted to keep it and give it to my grandson.
Oh, sure.
As long as he doesn't wear it to school.
Okay.
I'll get the back of it.
Yep.
Oops.
He's only 11 now.
Don't give it to him yet.
Oh,
So
And there's
Shoo
a
Shoo
different-
Baby was your plane, correct? And
Shoo
you,
Shoo Baby was a plane. Now, the fella that put this on thought that I flew 30 missions, which I did not fly 30 missions, I flew 29 missions. We were scheduled to fly the 30th, and after we reached 25, it was more or less voluntary to fly the other 4.
Okay, got it.
And he didn't want to fly the 30th because he was superstitious.
a final question. How do you think your military career affected your life or changed your life?
Well, when you're 19 years old, you don't realize what's happening. And you don't know the scope of life. But it was one of the best times that I had, to tell you the truth. Of course, at that time, I didn't realize it. But how do you mean affected me?
Well, you know, how did it change your life or?
Well, it made me more conservative, I would say. And I think I got a little more religion, to tell you the truth.
Now, did you get married while you were in the service?
Yes. We got a picture of our marriage?
it's in that.
Yes, we were married in upstate New York in Calicoon in a monastery.
Uh-huh. And that was before you were discharged?
It was before the invasion even.
Oh, okay.
We were married June 11th, 1944.
School we went to. Country.
I went to the same school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good picture.
Don't show me this. He was only back home about 2 weeks, I think.
I think this picture was in the 8th museum down in Georgia.
Front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait a minute, just a second. Okay, great, got it.
All right, well, thank you very much for your interview.
Yes, thank you.
How about a cup of coffee or something?